Hello again, friends, and thank you for joining me for another whiskey tasting. We've got one that is off the beaten path for me today for a number of reasons, not least of all that it is a Scotch whiskey. And though I grew up and had my early whiskey education loving Scotch whiskey, I do not drink very much of it or review very much of it for malt review. And the reason for that is that we've got a number of people in Scotland, Jason being one of the big ones, who has access to all sorts of wonderful stuff that I don't get my hands on, and by the same token, I have access to bourbons and American whiskeys that are hard to get over there, so we stick to our knitting more or less. But today I'm going to break that mold and bring you something that is unconventional, to say the least. So this is a whiskey that was generously shared with me, but that I don't know very much about, and part of the reason I'm prevented from finding out very much about it or researching it is that it is shrouded in secrecy. So this is an independent bottling by WFFA, and I don't even know what WFFA stands for, but this is a whiskey that all we know about it for sure is that it is a single malt from Orkney. It's a single cask, and this is called Kirkwall B1989, and from that we can intuit that this is coming to us from either Scapa or Highland Park. Now, if you have read much of our site, you will know that Highland Park is not a malt favorite in its officially bottled form, and that those releases tend to be underwhelming in terms of both the flavor as well as the value for money. But if you can get your hands on an independently bottled Highland Park, such as the Stones of Stenness bottling that I got from Single Cask Nation recently, you can get some really, really lovely whiskey. So, with that in mind, I'm excited to try this, be it Highland Park or Scapa, we don't know. But this was distilled in 2000 and bottled in 2017, so it's coming to us at 17 years old. It is from a ex-bourbon cask, I've read, and you can tell that by the color. It doesn't really have that sherry darkness. It is non-chill filtered, natural colored. This is bottled at a strength of 58.1% ABV. And that's all we've got. I said it was bottled by WFFA, but they're a secretive group. There is not much information out there about them. And so as a consequence, I am just going to have to do my best with this. It's cask number 27. That's a detail that had eluded me, but it is on the label there. Cask number 27, if that means anything to you. But without further ado, we're just going to taste this. And you know what's interesting? I'm told often by readers that, they say, why don't you just relax? Like, why are you obsessed with all this detail and this minutia? And isn't it really just about the whiskey in the glass? And my response is always, well, yeah, it is about the whiskey in the glass, and who made it is important, and what it was made with is important, and how it was made was important, and if you don't know the details, you don't know any of that stuff, and so you don't know as much about what ended up in the glass. And I believe all that stuff matters. But in this case, it is actually just about the whiskey in the glass. I'm just going to stop worrying and really just enjoy this one. So if you can take a look at it, it is the color of, like, what jumps out at me is, if you're a Chicago Cubs fan, you'll know old-style beer. This is like a plastic cup full of old-style beer, that color, that pale yellow color. And there's even a bit of that on the nose, funny enough. Maybe it's the power of suggestion, but I'm sensing a little bit of that. Yeah, it's very very malty, very very grain driven. Not a whole ton of like. Yeah, some again very beery, like a light beer. There's some more serious notes in there. There's a woodiness that emerges, like a really piquant woodiness, like I want to say like a cedar almost. That kind of tangy wood, if you do. And trying to give you something else here, but it's really, this one's kind of eluding me. It's actually kind of funny. And what else do we have here? Maybe some like ripe apricots or like ripe stone fruit. There's a real doughy, like a yeasty, doughy, kind of freshly baked bread. The aroma, real buttery bread. Some more citrus fruit, maybe like a freshly cut lime in there. flowers. There's like some great floral notes in there, like a meadow flowers. Yeah. Yeah, so this is, you know what I love about this is it's just unadorned, mature, well-aged Scotch whiskey. Like there's something very simplistic about this. You know, as we've increasingly gotten into a world with all these crazy cask finishes and this and that, and people gussying up some underperforming distillate with some finishing and some overlays at the end. You know, just have whiskey that's well made and like really just has integrity and really shows plenty of that barley character. There's not a big fat cask sitting on the top of this. And I'll tell you what, I do love a bourbon cask. It is, I know sherry is all the rage, but you know, they're varying quality, and with just a nice ex-bourbon cask, you really get this showing through here in terms of its underlying character. So I'm going to take the plunge here. Let's go. Immediately, that's like delicious. I'm doing my thing where I just give it a little front of the mouth, kind of kiss and a little. I'll let it just kind of hit the teeth here. But all I want to do is just sip this right now. This is really appealing stuff. Wow. Okay, so. Try to give you guys some proper notes. There's a tart fruitiness through this, like a lemony kind of note that sits right in the middle of the mouth, and it is just so pure and wonderful. It's really I love that about this. There's noticeable heat on this too. It's 58.1%, which is certainly not the most potent whiskey I drink, but has a feel that around the mouth. There's this definitely sits all in the mucous membranes here with a with a kind of a little burning sensation, but yeah, no. So there's this creamy buttery note that just carries this from the front of the mouth, that initial burn towards the middle of the tongue, and maybe that's my favorite part so far. I mean, this has just got such again, that bourbon cask, man. You do not need to be looking for the sherry bombs if you want good flavor. This is getting more of that yeasty, bready, kind of baked goods type of notes there in the as this kind of crescendos at the top of the tongue. There's like a drying, like maybe a little chalkiness or a soapiness, almost that kind of texture is like right at the top of the tongue, and as it hits the roof of the mouth there, and then you go ahead and through the finish, you're getting all these like grain, flowery, and like stalky plant notes. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it's like very, very jungly, very exotic almost. Maybe it's appropriate that I'm sitting out here behind this huge, whatever kind of plant this is. Because it tastes, that plant is what this tastes like at the back of the mouth. Just really, really exotic. And there's like a cayenne pepper or a slight heat towards the end. And again, it's just very warming. Like this would be a great, like a winter's day dram, where if you need something to just give you a little bit of a warm up after you were out walking through the snow on a winter afternoon, this would be a nice one to just cozy up with. Yeah, as I swirled around in the mouth more, get more of that soapy texture through around the teeth and stuff. So, yeah, and that woodiness again. Just the purity of the bourbon cask and the interaction of that cask with the malt whiskey is really something in this case. And this is I might give this to somebody if I said, hey, look, you want to taste like what a bourbon cask tastes like, and not again with the dichotomy being sherry. So this is my first impression of this. I'm very positively predisposed. I'm not going to give away anything in terms of the score. You can read that in the article on www.malt-review.com. But I am super grateful that this was shared with me, and thanks again to the person that shared it, and thanks to you for giving me the opportunity to taste this with you. So if you can find this one, I still don't know who WFFA is, but cheers to them, and cheers to you too.